This episode is brought to you by Indie Insights. Indie Insights is our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to the film industry, movies, and the creatives that make them, not to mention you, our esteemed listeners. Inside, you'll find curated industry trends, articles, exclusive commentary, and underappreciated films from filmmakers like you worldwide. And the best part is that it is completely free. So join today at www.bonsai.film. It takes just a few seconds. And once you sign up, you'll get the very next newsletter on Friday morning. It's that simple. Go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter, and join a network of film creatives just like yourself. And don't worry, we'll never sell your information or spam you with a bunch of nonsense emails, just the bi-weekly film industry goodness you need. And if you ever tire of Indie Insights, simply unsubscribe. No gimmicks, no games. So go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights for free. You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
Hi, I'm Frances Hernandez, and I am a production designer, art director in the film industry. And you may know me for Spiderman No Way Home. And I'm currently on a big Star Wars series project that I will hopefully not talk too much about because there's a lot of secrets. But yeah.
Frances Hernandez, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm equally as excited, and I'm curious now. See, now you've piqued my interest. What can you tell us about the Star Wars series?
So, well, it's a known project that's been announced. It's Ahsoka, and with Rosario Dawson, and I'm really, really happy to be a part of this one. I love this character. I love the story. And I think that's about all I can say about it.
Are the NDAs very serious there?
Oh, they are. Yeah. But it's a really exciting project. And they did a big, if you want to learn anything about it, they did some interviews and some things at Celebration recently, which is their big conference. And there's a lot of things online, but I got to keep my secrets close to my chest. So
totally understand it. But I know it has to be a thrill for you growing up a massive Star Wars fan.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I am a huge Star Wars fan. It's one of those credits like with Harry Potter, or any of these sci-fi fantasies that you're just like itching to be a part of. And I come from humble non-film background. So to enter this industry and to kind of be blown away about how things are done, and then now you get to be a part of it is unreal. So
do you seek it out as work because you are such a super fan, or did they find you based on your work on the Spider-Man films?
I think so. It was really connections. So anything in this industry is like who you know, right? So and timing, and it just happened to time out that I knew somebody who was starting it and was able to jump on this one. So you're kind of, I'm a big put it out in the universe type person, and I've always wanted to do fantasy sci-fi work. And, but you never know what's going to come your way. So you just kind of have to be patient and hope that the timing plays out. And I got lucky enough that it did. So, yeah.
Well, you talk about the universe, seeing things through for you, and you are certainly that type of spirit. I think what this audience is going to find out today is that we've not interviewed anyone like you in the history of this podcast, you are an adventurer. You're wild at heart. You're technical and you're determined. So you are ambitious. A lot of times you get a person who is sort of that wandering soul. They don't have your level of ambition to couple with it. And so we are in for a treat today. By the way, I saw on your social media that you have the Holstein Manifesto somewhere on your wall in your house. Do you still have it?
What is this?
The poster that's right behind me that says, "This is your life."
Oh, I do love that quote. It is one of my favorite quotes of all time. I do have it framed. We just moved, or we moved in the fall, so it's somewhere around here. It's actually a lot smaller than yours. It's this frame that I keep on my desk.
I probably need a bigger reminder than you, which is why I got mine giant size.
Yeah, there you go. And I love that I am reminded by it. I was like, oh, there you go. So it's a good mantra. It's a good reminder.
How'd you find it? How did you come across the Holstein Manifesto?
So my background's in graphic design, and it's obviously a text-based poster design, and that kind of caught my eye. And then when you read it, it just hit, every word, every sentence just hit home. You're like, it just sometimes when you go through these quotes or poems or any kind of literature, you may get sidetracked or distracted from the greater message. And for this, it just kept hitting home. So I probably found it in like right after college, and that's kind of the time where you're kind of like, what am I doing with my life? Yeah. And I just have always kept that close to me. So, yeah.
Are you still in LA? I heard you say that you just moved. Okay, so you moved, but you moved in town. Got it.
Yeah, we moved in town. We were in Venice, and we just moved to Inglewood. So,
sweet.
Yeah.
I love that. And you're so right about the Holstein Manifesto. I am kind of wary of art in people's homes that is text-based. You feel free to judge
You mean
me.
Like life is beautiful?
Or like life is about the moments, not how many breaths you take, but the moments that take your breath away. Like,
oh man, I'm from North Carolina, so you go into my mom's home and you're gonna get some good old home sweet home. Southern cooking is where it's at. Cheese ball, text, wooden plaques, right? Like.
Yeah. I was going to say, judge me as you will, but it's just a personal fit. Here's the deal. They were all great at one point. Like Absolutely. When Will Smith said that in Hitch, I was like, oh. I was like blown away. But then when like every housewife in the South put it on their wall, I was like, oh God. Oh God.
Yeah. I mean, you can't ever take it too seriously. I mean, it's seriously in the sense that like everybody has it. Okay, cool. But there's some truth to it if everybody has it,
There is truth to it, but then it sort of becomes a commodity, like ceases to be almost like those Ray Dunn glasses and coffee mugs that everybody buys at the TJ Maxx. It's like, if everybody has it, and
does it muddle the message?
Yeah. And so for me, even though the Holstein Manifesto is a text-based piece of graphic artwork, it is powerful and not a lot of people have it. Like I was surprised when I saw you show it on your social, because I was like, oh, she gets it. She's part of the tribe. She's part of the Holstein tribe. You also were a production designer on one of my favorite videos, which is Love for That with Shura.
Yeah.
And, I guess it's by Masa, but Shura is the feature on that and like singing. Yeah. And that video is incredible. We'll have Elise, who does our show notes for us, put that in the show notes, both that and the Holstein Manifesto, so this audience knows what the hell we're talking about. But this video was so cool. And now in music videos, production design is even sort of more important, more salient. Mm-hmm. This thing was almost all that. What role did you play every role? Like, was it your idea to do the chain, to have the two protagonists chained together and everything?
Yeah, I think it's, so my job started with, okay, we know we want to shoot this video in one take, right? It's a one shot.
That is video. A one shot video?
Yeah. So we had to find a location that allowed us to move throughout a space freely, but also give us some interesting looks in each room that was telling a story. And then I love telling stories through music videos, through scripts and films and features, obviously. But when you listen to that music, and I was talking to the director about kind of what props or ideas can we bring to help tell that relationship in that music video, and
who directed it?
It was a very long time ago. I'll have to dive back. It was Sharif. One of my good friends, Sharif, was a producer on it. It was his classmate, I believe, who directed it. I'm sorry, my mind is completely
It's all
blanking.
good. We'll find it and throw it in the show notes as well. But go ahead. Sorry to interject. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But yeah, working with them and trying to create that visual of tension and that kind of chain, and then how they used it in the choreography was really fun. It was really fun to try to frame them with that prop and in the set that's the house that we found, and how can we turn each room into that like framing of their relationship and how they move throughout the space. So
the neighborhood looked like East Nashville to me, where where all the artists live in town.
Yeah, actually it was right by my new house that I live in now. It's kind of West Adams area. So it's LA for what it is.
I wouldn't have guessed that at all, but it was a cool neighborhood, and I love the metaphor in it. It felt like, the part where they're dancing, that's when they're making love and the relationship's good, and then things start to get weird in the middle, and then it ends sort of in the climax of that breakup. And she's ready to dance somewhere else. So much props to you, because that video was
you've seen
fire.
It. Yeah, that means a lot. Yeah, it was one of my early projects. So I came out here to LA. I never went to film school, so I kind of just jumped in the industry in North Carolina and got on one movie, and I fell in love with it. I was like a PA, and I was like, this is amazing. I got into the art department as a PA. So I was like, I got to learn from some artists. My background was in graphic design. So I just fell in love with everything. And when I moved to LA, I realized I'm surrounded by all these film students, and I didn't even know about film school growing up. Like, I was a ball player. I played basketball in college. So for me growing up, it was all sports. And I couldn't separate sports and art. And then afterwards, in my mid 20s, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And finding the art department in film allowed me to release this creative energy that I've had for so long. And, but when I got to LA, it was all these film students, and I didn't have that, education that they had. So I needed to just pretend that I was like, hey, I want to design some of your short films. Let me design some of your student work. Let's have fun. And I was like, I love designing. I love people. I love working with a team, and bringing those creative ideas to life. So finding these small music videos to start became my bread and butter in my early days here in LA. So.
Yeah, and you did brilliant work, and the rest is history, as we see. Calling back to the Star Wars series you're getting to work on. But I want to take us back in time a little bit. You've talked about North Carolina a few times, and obviously there are some big cities in North Carolina. Like, I particularly love Asheville, but you grew up in the woods,
the sticks, as they call it,
in North Carolina. So can you talk to me about your life growing up in the woods in North Carolina? What does that mean, you grew up in the woods? Can you explain sort of for this global audience what the mountains and the Appalachia of North Carolina are like?
Yeah, so we call it the sticks. It's a bunch of trees everywhere. It's so green. We lived at the end of like a dead end road, and it was actually called Sleepy Hollow. So it was kind of spooky. Wow. It was like the property used to be owned by this one family. Like in the South, you got families, and all of their siblings and cousins and nephews, like they all live in that street that they created. And there was this offshoot to that street that was Sleepy Hollow. It had nothing to do with the family or anything, but we bought this house at the end that was nestled in the woods, right on a pond. And it was an amazing, at the time, when you're a kid, it's an amazing place to grow up. You're running around in the woods, you're building forts, you're exploring, you're being adventurous. In high school, you kind of are like, oh, what am I doing? Like, there's nothing to do here in this small town except go to movies, which I spent all my teenage years. That's all I did was go to the movie theater. We had a movie theater in town, and drive-in movie theater, trucks and everything. Like, that was what I did in high school. It was the only thing to do in high school. So, but when you're young, and I feel like I didn't have a lot to do. Like we didn't have good Wi-Fi. We had like dial up, for anybody who don't know what that is, it's a lot of annoying sounds as your internet kind of boots up to your phone line.
Yep.
And, I just couldn't, it leaves me like, so then what do you do? And I drew a lot. I tried to be creative and use my imagination and hikes and forts and trying to build little teepees in the woods. And you start to create this, you start to create your own stories, because I had me and my sister, but she was 5 years younger. So, you kind of are just creating some little adventure life as a kid.
Is it possible to do great work without isolation?
It's a good question. I think it is. I think that you can be inspired by different experiences that guide or kind of morph you. I think of great artists like Basquiat, who just grew up into that New York, Brooklyn scene and was inspired by what he was surrounded by, which is chaos, right? Like New York in the 80s was just pure chaos. But then I think of people who are isolated in the farmlands or whatever, also creating art. And it's a lot different, but I think you just have to pull from your different experiences and try to find a story and a meaning, whether that's in nature or a city,
I wonder if you have a chaotic upbringing like Basquiat, do you have to do your work in isolation for it to be great? You have to steal away. And or is it one of these things where if you grow up around it, you're just used to it, and if you grow up in isolation, you're a lot better when you get to be isolated in your creation? Like, do you like to go to a coffee shop to work for yourself, or do you like to be in your own space?
That's interesting. I think it's a little bit of, for me, it's a bit of both. I think it's all subjective to the person. I tend to feed off of other people. So that's why I kind of moved away from graphic design, which is a very much in front of my computer in an office by myself, either at home or somewhere else. And it's very isolating.
Yeah.
And in North Carolina, actually, the older I got, I feel like I got to a level where it was hard to get inspired when I'm just in my own space entirely. And I wasn't growing as an artist. And so when I got in the film industry, it opened my mind away from not just graphic design in print and in branding, but also graphic design and film. And so like signage that you see in movies and TV and props that people hold, like you can design that creatively. And it just opened my mind to a different kind of art and graphics. So I think that sometimes it's good to get out of your comfort zone to try to come up with your best work, So I think it's a bit of both for sure.
Yeah, it's a great point. I used to say that I would love to work in coffee shops, but that's mostly because I'm addicted to coffee. But it is more of what you're saying, the energy of others. Somehow I'm able to siphon it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a superpower. I don't know if it's everybody can do it. But for me, if a person walks in the room with a certain type of energy, I can actually grab it. And I can internalize it and funnel it. And it's this really weird thing that happens.
I think that's a superpower for sure.
It might. Yeah. it could be. And I tend to, like, I did almost all of my college papers in the craziest coffee shop at the time in town, which was this, 24-hour coffee shop named Cafe Coco. And it just had the weirdest mix of people ever because it was in the middle of downtown, but next to a Christian college. So you would have like very religious students mixed with transgender people, party goers, druggies, artists, musicians, and how they all just mixed together in the Bible Belt I just thought it was fascinating. And
that is very fascinating.
Yeah, and I wrote great stuff being in there because of that. I really feel like that was a big part of it. Speaking of that sort of integration of ideas, you mentioned art and sports being specifically basketball, which I love. I've played that my whole life. I still play 2 times a week.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. That being sort of binded together for you growing up, were either of your parents athletic or particularly artistically inclined, or were they both?
My dad drew. He was always sketching. He taught me how to draw, like just with pen and paper and or pencil and paper rather. But my dad's Filipino, so in terms of like height or athleticism, I guess I would say I got it from my dad, but also like he's not the tallest man on earth. And
Right. How tall are you?
and my mom, I am 5'9".
Okay, good. That's pretty tall.
Yeah, and it's good to put that in the podcast world. You never know about height. You always hear voices, but I'm tall for a girl. Try to hold my own.
Heck yeah.
My dad taught me how to draw, and then but the Filipinos love basketball, and so I think that I used to coach over there, and there's nothing cooler than to watch. If you walk the streets of the Philippines, you're going to see kids with no shoes on, no food, but they got a basketball. That's the one thing that they'll have. It's just life over there. And I think that I somehow genetically inherited that, whether I knew it or not. It just became a part of me. And my grandfather played, and so I knew about it, but I had to make it my own identity, being where we were in the South. So, yeah. But in terms of artistic,
was it you just picking up a ball and saying, "This feels right"? Or was it your dad or mom pushing you into the sport and finding out you were just sort of naturally good at it?
My parents pushed me. They put me into every sport, right? So they tried everything, and they were just kind of like they definitely took a step back and just wanted to see what stuck. And soccer was a big one, and then basketball really I connected with. And then it's really so and I took on basketball, but I wasn't sure about it. I wasn't sure if I was any good. And in middle school, this is a fun story. In middle school, I was in 7th grade, which is when you start. It was like just starting 7th grade. And this basketball coach, tall, like Coach Carter complex, like alligator skin shoes and suits every day to work, comes up to me like scary. And I'm like, oh, who is this guy? Hands me a VHS, tells me I'm the one, and walks away. And I'm like, I'm a 7th grade. I'm like, what is this VHS movie? And I'm like, I go home and I watch it. And my dad's like, oh, this is The Matrix. This is a really good movie. And I'm like, The Matrix? And then you watch it. And at the time when I'm 7th grade, I was terrified of that movie. I was like, what is it? It's so weird. And oh my gosh. And I shrug it off and I go to play, but I try out for the team and I make the team. And since that day he hands me that VHS, he just poured in that confidence of like, you could be the one, you can make it, you can get out of here, you can be anything you want. And so from that moment on, I just hung on to basketball. I was like, all right. And then when I just had to put my mind to it, and I just dedicated everything to the sport. So
it's remarkable the way we internalize compliments and belief when it's someone who doesn't owe us love.
Speak life, not death. Yes.
Yeah. Had your mom or dad handed you the VHS, it wouldn't have triggered anything for you, I believe.
No. Yeah.
It was just the fact that it was this guy that was a basketball coach, tall, didn't have to love you, right? Didn't have to like you, and saw something in you. And then it triggered. And just to catch the audience, so the reason we're talking about basketball so much is
I know
Frances isn't just like a girl who played basketball. She ended up playing professionally in Kuwait and had a ride to North Carolina and has spent a lot of time but she became a true baller. And
thank you.
By the way, what are your feelings on folks that can only see points as valuable in basketball? It just drives me crazy. Like
drives me crazy too.
I've played this game so long, and I've started to understand like the glue that sort of keeps winning together. That the elements, that binds the elements of winning together. Yes, points is big because you have to have one more point than the other team. Yeah. But if you look at where those points come from, those don't show up on the stat sheet unless it's rebounds or steals. But there are all these little things that are happening where you're a heady IQ type, basketball IQ type player that allowed the rebound to happen or created the pressure that caused the turnover. And I can see those players like
Oh,
right
man.
away. So people say I'm
Yeah.
crazy when I tell people Draymond Green is the leader of Golden State.
Yes. Yes. And LeBron James may not be the best basketball player of all time. I'm sorry. I just said it. We can
No,
edit
Michael
that
Jordan
out.
is, of course.
Thank you.
And here's the reason why. He leads differently.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair, right?
Leads differently. He has a role, and he understands his team as a whole and the roles that it takes to win a championship and a game. And they fulfill their roles individually, and he empowers them to, right? Like, that's the secret. You need to empower your team. And that's something from basketball that I've taken into what I do as a production designer. Like, I'm only as good as the people around me. Yeah. So, I mean, you just learn so much from sports. And side note, do you follow the Drew League? Do you follow LeBron James?
I heard that Kyrie's going to play in the Drew League.
So LeBron played yesterday.
Yeah.
In the Drew League. And everybody's talking about it. 42 points, triple double, yada, yada, yada. They won by 2 points to a team that had no NBA players. And I'm like, can somebody explain to me how the best basketball player in the NBA just won a pickup game by 2 points?
Yeah.
You know, it goes to show like those stats aren't as cool as what everybody says. I mean, yeah, it's cool individually, but it ain't going to win you a championship.
The Russell Westbrook, James Harden problem.
Right.
I mean, if they have the ball the entire time, they're going to get stats.
Yes.
They're going to get it's just inevitable. Like, and well, what about the rebounding? Well, if you're shooting a shot as a pro player like Russell Westbrook, you kind of know where you miss.
Right.
And it's easy to follow your own shot, especially when you have such great bounce and athleticism like him. So it's just, it's a padding kind of feel to me. Whereas the player I'd followed the last 2 years, and he made a little bit of news this summer, is DeJounte Murray.
Oh, yeah.
I look at that kid like, oh my God, that kid does everything good. Like he just, he's a weird player, really weird, rangy player, does a lot of weird things and does all of them well, and quietly wills a really bad team to 40 wins somehow. So it's I'm fascinated with those kind of players. Not to take anything away from the LeBrons of the world,
right?
But I look at the leadership style, and just coming from my background too, the difference is communication. And in film, to segue to that, it's the same, to your point. Like, you have to be able to communicate effectively, and it's literally the difference between high morale on a set or high output and maybe someone getting, like, think about the Alec Baldwin Russ situation. Like, someone got shot and killed, and it was all communication.
Right.
It was all a lack of clear use of words and language. And the end result is someone died.
Yeah, it's too real. I mean, we so much overlook that simple aspect of communication that it can make a show, life, anything just go a little bit easier if we all just listened a little bit harder and communicated a little bit better and just had some forgiveness with each other. It's like we so much hold too much pride, and it's like, gotta let that go sometimes. So
yeah, 100%. And the value we place on training around communication, that's why I always say, there's parents, they'll say, well, I don't want to put my kids in sports, and sports is for Neanderthals and whatever the other thing is. It's like, no, you don't understand what happens to a kid when they grow up in a team environment and everyone's counting on them. Yes, there's pressure. Yes, there's downsides. Yes, there's shitty coaches. Yes, there's shitty teammates. But people who come out of sports tend to lead in other industries and tend to be great communicators and empathize and understand the difference between a reason and an excuse. That's highly nuanced.
Yeah. Do you ever find that you come across in the film industry or the creative industry a lot of athletes?
I do find that.
Yeah. Okay.
I do, and I find in my life in business, it seems like half athletes or just achievers in general. My business partner Nick, he always says, "How you do one thing is how you do everything." And I love repeating that,
like that.
Because it's true. Like, if you find someone who's like this incredible investor or incredible CEO or incredible filmmaker or incredible director or whatever, producer, what you'll find out is they did great on grades.
Yep.
They were an awesome athlete.
Yeah.
They cared about this.
Yeah.
They have these hobbies that are like outrageous. For example, on the weekends, they run ultra marathons, those 100-mile marathons in Colorado. You're like, that's just who they're just wired like that. But I don't know if they were Eagle Scouts. Like, I don't know if they were wired that way, or they were raised in that sports and team environment where being successful collaboratively mattered.
Right.
Through your individual effort.
Right. Yeah, I think you get wired that way through sports, but then I think we have to continue to be rewired, because
good point.
Like you kind of forget, or you'll get around a different environment that tries to push you out of your comfort zone, or that might, and you got to remember where you come from. You got to remember like what you need to do. And yeah, for me, like in art department or in the film creative side of the film industry, I don't meet a lot of athletes, which is funny. And I've always felt like I've had to separate the two. Like, if I try to bring up basketball at work, people are like, sports. And I'm like,
oh, you mean, yeah. So
like on set, or like in general, like the creative or the more creative side, with my fellow art directors.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Technical, prop masters, set decorators, it's like, some people will get it, but for the most part, it's a different world for them. And I get it.
Let me amend to it. Actors, art department.
Oh, yeah.
No, almost never. Yeah. They are almost always theater.
Yeah.
High school. Yes. Like, and while someone was playing sports, they were doing the theater, right?
Yeah.
Producers, which is the side I'm on most often, and investors, yes.
Yeah.
So that's where I run into them. It's like, oh,
I like it. Yeah.
So there is kind of, and I like the idea that it takes two types to make it all happen in film. I enjoy that.
Right. No, it does take all the types. I actually got, like, last summer, I worked on House Party.
Oh, yeah.
With a director named Kelmatic. And so that's coming out soon. Everybody's got to check that out.
Congrats, yes.
And it was fun because you had a little, LeBron James actually was in our movie. So as much as I've separated myself, I'm pretty much tied to him. It's going to be a fun story, but it was cool to work and tell stories of kind of the same identities that you can relate to, the struggle of like, oh, I play ball, but I'm also trying to make it, and I'm trying to be doing something musically or creative, and how does that work? And so it's fun to actually read a story and read a script and work with directors and producers who you vibe with, right? Who are like, this is what we understand each other's language. Yeah. So I think that it was really cool. And then after that, I was able to do a couple of commercials for Nike and the NBA that, I mean, dreams level reached, I was like, all right, I don't know how better to mend my two fields, so.
Yeah, you've done a lot of that in your life. I mean, just looking at the places you've traveled to, it's unbelievable. You've been all across the world, and you're still in search of more and more memories and places. You quoted or wrote, "I love traveling. It creates all sorts of romantic stories, some hopeful, some lost." And that's from a poem you wrote called named Hopeless in 2016. Wow. And I am curious if you can share, and wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing some of those hopeful and lost stories.
Ooh. Oh man, you just went deep into the archives. No, that was good. Man, before I got in the film industry, and before I turned 25, I didn't live anywhere longer than 6 months. And, wow. But being from the South, I'm accustomed to connections and people that and that family type vibe with folks, and traveling with basketball, and just for me in general with work and trying to figure out who I am in this world and how I fit in. I think that I was constantly searching for that love and that home feel, and constantly getting broken and challenged at the same time. because you would feel it for a second, whether it's with the person that you meet at a hostel or a basketball camp that I did in the Philippines. Like you for a second, you find these sparks, and then you turn the corner and you're like, I can't read this sign that's in a different language. Where am I? Oh my gosh, I'm lost. Like, and you get pulled out. And I think that was just, it's this dance of love and trying to find love for you in this world, right? Like, what does it mean to you, and how is it going to present itself to you when you're in different uncomfortable places or countries that you're not used to? But I also was addicted to that, right? Like I was addicted to both of those. But I think it was because I also sometimes when I was traveling, like I was addicted to that, but I also was missing this kind of creative career. Like, what can I'm not, yeah, sure. I'm having fun. And I'm on these adventures and I'm falling in love and I'm lost and I'm doing the wrong thing and I have no money. and for me being an athlete, I was taught to just figure out what you want to do. And then you do everything to get there. Right. Yeah. And so for a while before I found the film industry, I think I was constantly searching for that as well. So, and then I found the film industry when I was 25 and the rest is history. I was like, all right, here, let's go. This is a new thing for me. It's like a circus. I love the circus. Let's figure out let's learn it. Let's just jump in. So for the past 7, 8 years, that's what I've been doing.
I read 5 or 6 of your poems, and there seemed to be a common through line in all of them, which is this enduring question of the creative, which to me is, do you allow yourself to fall in love with anything permanent, or do you fall in love with the idea of impermanence? So this desire to move about is typically thwarted by the fact that you fall in love with someone who is not moving around, who has a home, who has a job, who has something right there. Or, and it's like, ooh, I could love you, I could be with you, but that is the kind of the end of my adventures. And I'm in love with these adventures right now. Yeah.
And, it's funny, you're giving an identity to that person, and that person definitely existed. But for me, it was my alter ego, or I would say it was myself. Like I lived in Costa Rica and Panama for a year, these islands, tropical islands. It was like a beautiful commercial. You couldn't make this up. It was just paradise. And I was kind of a marketing graphic designer for this resort. And so my job was to just basically live it up with everyone else and get people to come stay with us. But after a year, I just kept imagining, as much fun as I was having, I just kept imagining a different life. And I think part of it is the Southern culture that I grew up in. Like I had fellow colleagues and friends who were having kids and getting married at 22. And I'm like, I know I don't want that. I'm having fun, but I missed a sense of that person, like loving that stability and loving that familiarity that I was missing. And, but I think it's always nice to have the balance. And I definitely think when you're traveling, it's easy to miss home or miss where you come from, but you grow so much when you're there that you don't realize it in that moment. And now that was probably 10 years ago that I was in Costa Rica and Panama. And so looking back, I'm like, wow, think about how much I grew in that year. It was miraculous. And even if I was just thinking about this other self that I'm in love with, I'm glad that I stayed true to what I was doing. And the time came, part of our journey in life is just trusting the timing, right? Which is why I love that quote behind you. It's like, you can try to come up with a plan all you want, but you just have to trust the process. And love Joel and B for that. But it's like, trust the process, trust the flow, and have faith that it's going to work out. And that's the way it should be, right? Like you are where you are and you are where you're meant to be at any given moment, and you got to make the best of it. So with basketball, it kind of stayed true. And with the creative industry, it's always been true. So it's hard when you don't see it. It's hard when you can't see that bigger picture. Yeah. doesn't mean you can't live in that moment of where you are in that moment. So,
yeah, it is weird. In life, you'll get told two things: live in the moment and be a long-term thinker. Well, those two things are contradictory.
yes.
So the courage it takes to try to understand which one to deploy, short-term thinking, so present thinking, or who you want to be in 5 years is huge.
Man, think about projects, right? What do you want to write next? What do you want to create next? What project am I going to say yes to? It's like so much anxiety just even around those concepts now. I'm like,
right,
you know, I'm going to take the rest of the year off. And then I get a call and I'm like right back in it, you know?
Can't afford to miss that one. Exactly. It's wild. You had a coach that kicked you off of a team. Did you laugh or did you cry when you found out she was fired for giving her athletes steroids and other weird drugs?
Let me tell you, I revisit. There's a lot of unpacked emotions. Well, there's some packed and unpacked emotions with that incident. So, yeah, I was a sophomore in college and had started for this coach, but also sad for this coach. And it was a tumultuous relationship where there were a lot of players who seemed to be going with this process that this coach was wanting to implement. She was a new coach to our program. And there's a lot of things that just, you know, it didn't make sense, but you're just trying so hard in that moment to just appease your coach, right? Like it's a coach. You're just like, I'm going to do whatever I can to make this work. But also I'm not trying to cross lines of what's inappropriate or what I don't believe in ethically. And there's things that you just didn't know about. And when I got released from the program, it was huge because there was no reason why. It was a lack of, I think, a part of getting on board of this system that didn't make any sense. And there was a lot of weird stuff. And then your teammates who did stay on the program are like, hush, hush. And it's like, what's going on? Like, what is happening? Like, why am I part? And it wasn't just me, it was half the squad that kind of, it was just a whole restructuring. And you're like, why is she keeping these players? And why are these players leaving? And why, like, it just didn't make sense. And I blamed myself for a long time. And that, I think to this day, I'm like, what could I have done differently? Because in that moment, you know, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do for this. I'm playing the WNBA and I'm going to do all these things. And to get that rug pulled out from underneath you it was terrifying. And I cried my eyes out. I bawled and I wasn't, you know, this is part of that journey and trusting the process where I was so angry at basketball, so mad. But my coaches and all these people who told me like, you're going to make it and you're going to get out of here. They were like, I just felt like I owed so many people so many things. So I went to like a D2 school or a couple D1s to transfer. And I tore my ACL at the first school doing a layup, like warming up.
Just a regular thing. That's how it always happens. Yeah.
Like literally I wasn't doing anything. But to me, it was the biggest sign of just like, I need a break, like screw this. I had my meltdown and I actually stopped playing for 2 years solid. I quit cold turkey. I still coached and I still like worked out, but rehabbed my knee, but I didn't play collegiately. So I had 2 years of college and then 2 years off. I became a snowboarding instructor, worked at a bar and, you know, lived up college for 2 years because I had never experienced it. And, you know, it was crazy, but I was so lost. But I still trained and I still, you know, I kept in contact with a few people and sure enough, like a trainer that I worked with, he's the one who got me. He was like, you're really good. Like you should coach, like try it. Like you're great with people. You love kids, like try coaching. And so I did. And we started doing camps and clinics together. And then that led me to going overseas and coaching and then ultimately playing internationally. And it's crazy how full circle it came. And so for me, that full circleness kind of allowed me to forgive basketball. I forgive my relationship with it and to amend it. But my relationship with my coach didn't really I'll never forget my senior year. This is when I knew that stuff was getting weird. Is my senior year, a week before I graduated, I just accepted that marketing job in Panama and Costa Rica. This is my senior year college. Coach calls me in, same coach. She was there for 2 years, calls me in and says, she will pay for my grad school if I stay because I had eligibility, right? I had 2 years of eligibility. She's like, come, I know you haven't played in 2 years. I don't care. Like, come play for me. And I'm like, so now I'm good enough? And I haven't played for 2 years. Like, what? And so it was like not a question of, it was just so, but it was a strategic move she was trying to play with this other shooting guard. But in the moment I was like, I sat down, I took the interview, I met with her and I asked her, like, I don't remember the questions, but I asked her a few questions and I would just genuinely wanted to see if she felt any, like tried to get any kind of understanding. And she was cold turkey,
no remorse.
No remorse. And just didn't even look at me as a human, more or less as like this object that she can fuel with, come to find out, steroids, which is terrifying, like abuse. She was verbally abused. She was just really tough. And I couldn't understand why. And honestly, I never understood, even in that moment when I wasn't proved that I didn't think she actually wanted me as a human. I was like, you know what, I'm good. Like I have a whole life that I'm going to try to go figure out. Like, wow. And so I walked away. I didn't play for her. Went coaching overseas and had the opportunity to fall in love with basketball again, which meant more to me than college or, you know, credentials or points or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just glad I was able to find love in basketball again. But yeah, I think like when the news came out that she was arrested for steroids and abusing players, and like, it all just made sense. So I had to.
Yeah. Did you give it, well, was your reaction more tears or was it more like?
No, it was just this calm, like, I felt like I had so many tears. I tend to show so much emotion when I don't have answers. Obviously, I like to have answers. I like to know what's going on. And when you don't know, it's hard. You know, it's like you start making stuff up, and
yeah,
that's
I know you blamed yourself for everything. So seeing that probably.
Yeah, it doesn't justify like attitude. You know, there's obviously, I had a lot of, when sports, you have a lot of emotion, and I'm sure I said things that I regret. I still do, like playing pickup or playing competitive ultimate for soccer or whatever. You know, I'm like, I still play sports to this day, and I let my emotions get the best of me. But, you know, I'm always trying to grow as a human and as a player and as a creative. And, but it's hard when things just don't add up, you know? So yeah. When it started to add up with what happened to her, and my teammates actually came forth, and some of them, like, we all kind of stopped talking to each other, like all of us, for years. Wow. And then recently, like she tried to get another job in the state, and not a few of my teammates actually wrote a petition to let that program know, like, she's not an okay person and coach, like. Because the coach, so many that, like, people think coaches are just basketball or like play minded. Like, when you coach a team, and especially at college or high school level, like, you are forming people. You know, it's not just a job. It's like, we are forming people. And I had a coach that spoke life into me, and then I had a coach like her that took it all away. Yeah. And I think that it's hard when you try to live in both of those scenarios. It's like, how do we rise, or how do you, like, remember where you came from? Maybe, I don't know. And so traveling, I guess I was trying to find that again.
Thank you so much for that. That's huge. And kudos for the courage to not take the college offer, because when someone doesn't like you or has shunned you, and then they're going to willingly accept you back, it's really hard to say no to them, because you want them to be satisfied with you. You want them to accept you. And so I think that strength really paid off. And again, kudos on the courage.
Thank you.
Are you, or do you mind answering a technical curiosity that I have?
Sure.
I have a technical curiosity. So on Spider-Man No Way Home, this is one of those movies where the credits roll, and they're like 10 minutes long.
They're so long.
Because there's like 50,000 people that worked on it. So from an art production standpoint, when you're getting art from all over the place, and there's team A, team B, team C, or whatever, how do you ensure that the art stays consistent? What is the trick? I'm curious about it. I've wondered about it for a while. Like, how do you keep it all the same?
Yeah. Well, that's what the designer's job is for. So our production designer on No Way Home was Darren Guilford. And if there's one thing he knows how to do, it's to put together a well art directed movie, through color, through tone, through textures, through storytelling. Now with this movie and a lot of Marvel and superhero and Disney, you're the third film of a whole trilogy that's been happening. So there is a language that you're trying to upkeep, right. You can't really go off the beaten track. But the biggest thing is how do you bring it to life and cohesively tell that story? So through the production designer who kind of creates that tone and sets that tone, you have these art directors, and I was one of 4, I believe, that just kind of tells that story, right? Like you're coming in we kind of divide the sets, we divide and conquer, and we are the ones who make it happen. And we have to build it. We've got to pick out materials. We've got to pick out textures. And just like a coach trying to put together a team, you're trying to put together a really great cohesive team that can work together to get it done. And so we're constantly checking in with each other and seeing what other sets are looking like. And then you kind of want to bring that to your sets to bring it to life. So, yeah.
If you pick, let's say, some different tones, colors, pieces in production design that don't exactly match up and don't seem to fit the larger project, how much power does the editor have to fix that mistake in the coloring process and in post? Does that happen a lot?
It depends on the type of show or like the size of the show. So, these big budget features, they're going to spend their money elsewhere. Like what is more important, the tone of that chair color or the wall or the visual effect of this like flying alien that's crashing through the window, Right. I think so many things, especially me as an art director, I say this a lot sometimes, but I'm a imperfect perfectionist. So I'm constantly focused. I want to be a perfectionist on things that matter. So understanding what is in camera, what is in your shot, what is in your frame, and really kind of dialing that in to the best of your ability. Obviously, we always want to produce a 360 set where somebody can walk in, but you're always with a time and budget constraint. So how can you focus that to the best of your ability? Right. And same goes for every department. Now you're looking at editing, which shots you're going to keep, which are the best ones. And then you go to color and then visual effects. And I think there are some things that visual effects departments clean up a lot of things. But I think that relationship in post, which is what half those credit names are, is for sure. A different, I think there's 3 steps in filmmaking. You've got prep, the shoot, and your post-production, and post-production takes on a life of its own. So I'm sure the director has certain things that they want to change because in the moment it may not have been what he wanted, but or reshoots, right? You've heard of reshoots happening on these big shows, and you're trying your best in the moment. And if you want to really, as a designer, you're constantly right beside that director, those producers, to try to be on the same page about what you're producing in camera so they can save the most money. Right. And that's the big part of our job, which is fun to figure out. It's a big puzzle,
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's like we have this much time. That's one of my favorite things, by the way, about making a movie. We have this much time. So principal photography is this much. We have this much money, and we have this many hours in a day. How are we going to get it done? Right. Right. And I think you're a writer, right? You write your stuff. I've written screenplays. I wouldn't say I'm a writer by trade. If I did say that, I would say I'm a writer that doesn't write, which makes me like 80% of the writers that exist. But it's funny because we are writing a book right now. I do write for this podcast. I do write for our website and for Bonsai Creative as a organization, but screenwriting, not as much. Yeah. Yeah. I think when you're, as a director or writer, when you're trying to pinpoint that story, it's like, I relate everything to sports. So it's like you're the point guard, you're trying to use your peripherals, and in one peripheral, you see your best shooting guard. And then in the other peripheral, you see a post player who makes 50% of the shots. It's like, I'm going to try to pass it to that shooting guard who I know is going to make the shot. And it's like, that's kind of how you got to approach these creative decisions, is like, what's my highest percentage of what's going to help tell my story? So it's like, is that chair or that sofa that the actor is sitting on going to matter more? And it's obviously the sofa. I'm going to spend more money on that. Right. I want to dial in that color. I want to make sure that we all are in love with it. Yeah, and it's a tough choice because we have 3 feature films and worldwide distribution. We've done a bunch of short films. We give notes all the time, and
Right.
investors and producers and branding and marketing in particular for films and that strategy. And I have noticed the importance of production design and art design, because if it's not right, it actually pulls the viewer out of the movie.
Right.
Like, oh, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
And I can't get past it. Like, I know that character's
that's
talking.
me in cinematography, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
It's a problem, right? And it's funny because you can't really prioritize one over the other. It's like, okay, well, we're not going to fix this couch. We'll fix this part over here that could pull the viewer out of the story. Right. Why? Because we think this couch is still suspending the disbelief of the viewer.
Right. Right. And sometimes, like, we do the best. We're human, right? So sometimes we may get that couch wrong. But my whole thing is I want to give you as many things to play with as possible, right? It's like I have this here, I have this option, this option, this option. You have room to tell a story because I've created a room that is around your character. So whether you put him on the bed, the desk, whatever, like as a designer, that's how I like to approach.
Oh, that's brilliant. I like that. Like, so no matter where the character is, no matter what the rewrite is, the character's in their room, so it all fits.
It's all going to work. There's a moment that tells that character's story, whether he's at his desk and you see a framed quote that is something he lives by, or, it's his trophy or whatever. It's like on the other side of the room, it's like, you got to help tell the story in every inch of that room. And yes, there are certain things where you want to spend more money, and I think too, you could think about it as sets. Like, what are your more important sets than the sets where he's walking down the street? Yeah. It's like, I wanted moments like bedrooms and houses or like car. I mean, there's like certain things that you really want to develop and tell that story more in certain different spaces.
Having worked on several big budget films, is there anything that happened or a moment that sticks out to you in your memory from your time on set, whether it be in the Spiderman films or what you're doing with Star Wars now? Is there anything that sticks out to you as something we might not expect to happen?
And not as oh, that's interesting.
Maybe something we wouldn't anticipate that does actually happen or did happen.
That's tough. I mean, there's always things that happen that you don't expect. Every show, I'm like, okay, I didn't see that one coming. Well, on House Party, I think this was common knowledge, but we recasted our lead actor after shooting halfway through the movie.
Wow.
And I've never had that happen before, and that was bizarre. But we had shot half the movie, half the sets, everything. It wasn't working out with our main actor, and they recasted the main actor for someone else, and we had to continue shooting from the moment because we already had our locations booked. We were there, right? And so it's such a challenge on everyone in production to try to figure this huge problem out. And we shot the rest of the movie with this new actor, and then we had to go back and reshoot the whole first half of the film. So we had to go back and get these locations and redress them, which is a blessing and a curse. You're like, oh, it's so much more work to add on to this crew that's already tired. But at the same time, as a creative, you're like, I guess we can better improve it. Like what?
Yeah. Everything you did wrong the first time, or everything you lost sleep about, you already know you're good to go.
Yeah. Which for the most part, we did the same thing. So it felt pretty like we didn't make too many changes, but that was a huge challenge. And to see our crew on that movie just come together and we made it work. It's a beautiful, great film. So it's funny, it's hilarious. And I think the choices that we ended up making by the end of the movie are going to pay off. So
heck yeah. And as a fan of the first House Parties, I can't wait. And I imagine in that situation, the scriptie is on high anxiety, just like
that job in any movie, it's so stressful, man.
Like, how do we sync the reshoot? Right. Poor guy that got let go. Talk about fumbling in the bag. Man, it's all right in front of you, and you messed it up somehow.
I don't know.
Speaking of things that you had, was that the most difficult? Because I do have that question of like, which movies have you worked on so far that have been the most rewarding or the most difficult to work on?
So my niece actually just did a school project and asked me those two questions.
Oh, wow.
And my answer for the most difficult is I think by far the show that I'm on now.
Okay.
The Star Wars project. And when you get asked the most rewarding, my answer is also, I'm a month away from finishing, but if and when I can cross that line, this show will also be the most rewarding. And for reasons of just getting pushed so far out of your comfort zone on this show, I've been through, and it's made me such a better, I think, art director and designer, and just understanding how to work with so many different of high creatives, just really brilliant creatives, and just minds on the show has been something that I'm not, used to, just because you're in this bubble of people who I'm working with Dave Filoni, who is the writer and creator of Clone Wars and Rebels, and he's created Ahsoka, and now he's the director of our show. And Andrew, our production designer, did Jungle Book, and he's done the Mandalorian series. And so there's just so many brilliant minds on the show that it's like you're constantly learning, you're constantly trying to please a lot of important people, and you're constantly trying to pull it off. And then there's personalities and just for an example on the show, we build our sets somewhere else and we have to transport them here. So the technicalities of how do I not just build stuff in a normal world, but I have to move things around, and it's to work with so many different people who are really good at their job. That's been really challenging, but also a blessing, because you get to learn from them and figure out how they do it and how they want to do it. And you just add those tools to your tool belt. As I go on to my next project, I'm like, I just picked up so many cool things from my toolbox. Let's go. I feel good about it, but it doesn't take away how hard it's been, and how to just find those tools, and which ones do you want to pick up? Which ones do you want to leave behind? Which ones do you want to learn from? Which ones do you, in both cases, good and bad. It's interesting. Yeah. So I definitely think this project here is going to be my toughest and most proudful show. Yeah.
If you want to be an A player, the fastest route is to play with other A players, and they'll pull you up. It won't be comfortable.
Oh.
There could be some embarrassing moments, but you will learn from them and be stronger. You've dipped your toes in creation as well, and trying to make your own thing, wear some different hats. And in 2017, you wrote and directed a short film where the entire footage was stolen.
Oh, man.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us what the film was about? And did you ever find out who the asshole was that stole your movie?
So, oh my gosh. So I write poetry, as you've mentioned, and I haven't written lately, but I love writing little snippets of moments that you feel. For me, it was a lot in my 20s where I was just going through who am I and what do I want to do with my life and career-wise? You have so many questions. So this short film was kind of a self-reflective piece of a girl in her 20s who she just ends a relationship, or she's kind of ending this phase of her life, and she gets in her car and she's just driving because she's trying to get away from this town or city that she's in. And it's this kind of a road trip short film that is about this girl finding herself and what is some greater meaning. But it was there's no dialogue. It's all kind of backed by this poem that I wrote about, based for the piece. And it's kind of her inner dialogue in 3 different phases of her life. And so she's herself. So she's mid-20s, and she's driving up the PCH, but along the way she encounters different phases of herself. So she encounters this. Oh. Yeah. So in the beginning, she sees this little girl, and it's actually it's her. She doesn't, in the moment, she just doesn't know it. But it's that idea of when you're younger, you're you're fearless. You're you haven't learned, you haven't been hardened by life. You're just go for it, jump off the cliff, go swimming in the ocean. Why not? It's the question of why not. And it's beautiful because she kind of acts sporadically in that first moment. And then in the middle, she meets her current self, which is questioning everything. Mm-hmm. She kind of encounters she sees this girl with this guy, and they're in a fight, and she's just watching and observing. But it's a question of who do you want to end up with, or who do you want to be? And it's a lot of questions in that middle frame of the short. And then at the end, she encounters this wiser, older woman who tells her to just slow down, take a minute, breathe. And this actually happened to me. I was driving on the PCH one day and I pulled over because it was and I ran across the street. And this old lady was sitting in a chair and I didn't see her. She turns and she's like, slow down, child. And she had this way about it. She's like, slow down, child. Like, what are you in a hurry for? And she was just like, and then we just started talking. She was like, this view is amazing, isn't it? And I'm like, it is. And she's like, that's all it has to be. Like, just take it in. Like, wow. Yeah. Like stop searching for more than what you're looking for. Because maybe it's right in front of you. Yeah. And I just, that calming, wiser, older self that we're all kind of going to get to at some point, I think, she sees in the end and kind of has this closure. But it was this beautiful thing that I just told everybody about. But I had it on 2 hard drives. I had it in my car. I was in downtown LA. I was actually a PA on another shoot. This is like early LA days. And someone had broke into my car, bashed the window, and stole my bag. And I had 2 copies because I was taking one to the editor. And I was going to hold one for me, but both were in the same bag, and the bag got stolen.
Holy!
And I drove around downtown LA in the Arts District, Skid Row, like for days. I was just desperate. Like I didn't care about anything else. I just wanted to find it. And I never found it. But it's not to say
that's heartbreaking.
It was, but I think. It was, but it was, I'm glad I could tell the story with the people that I did, and it mattered to us. And I look back at footage I made it with some really close friends. So,
Are you going to try to reshoot it?
Maybe.
Ever? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I have a lot more, it's hard because it would be really fun to reshoot, but I think I look at it entirely differently now because I'm in a different phase of my life.
That's a great point. Yeah.
As a director, if you're kind of directing the piece, I would have to really take a step back to where I was. But, so yeah, I don't know, maybe, or maybe I'll write something new. You never know.
Yeah. Your story reminds me of a revelation I had recently, which is that looking back on my childhood, that younger version of me, I think all I ever wanted to be was David Seville, which is the Chipmunks' daddy. Oh, well, I thought that David Seville was Alvin's daddy. And then I found out that no, he was just like their manager, and he was just
manager. Yeah,
he was just always over there, or the Chipmunks were always at his house giving him hell. Yep. And it's like, I just always thought that Dave and Alvin had a father-son relationship because my manager, like if I make a mistake, my managers are going to be like, Chris, like he was like Alvin, and it was like, oh, that's his dad. Of course, it's his dad. I don't know how he got these chipmunks.
Yeah.
But he's definitely their daddy. And no, not true. Not true.
Are you a parent? Do you have kids?
I am. I have 3 kids that I know of.
There you go.
No, I'm just kidding.
Alvin?
I have 3 kids, ages 12 to 22. And they're great. Kids are great. And if I'd have known what I known now, if I'd have known back then what I know now, I would have probably had 3 more. I love kids. I think kids are awesome, and I probably would have doubled up because the thing that you don't know when you don't have kids is that the kid brings twice the value of the cost it has for you and the environment. So whatever cost that human, as long as if you mess your kid up when they're young, that might not be true. So I've always said this, like people say, oh, just do you, be yourself. Well, if you're shitty, stop being you, stop doing you. Don't do you. We wouldn't tell Hitler to just do you. You know what I mean? People like, hey, Hitler, you're a little much.
Yeah.
Let's not do you so much. Right. So, but if you're going to have kids and love your kids and they're going to grow up and be productive members of society, so to speak, they're going to double whatever it costs you, literally, money wise, dollar wise, and whatever burden they might have on the environment. So, because their creativity and their sense of responsibility to the thing that can never be violated, which is your connection to nature.
Yeah.
They end up trying to care for that. That's the thing that's underrated, is that somewhere deep down in our code, is an understanding that we are connected to each other and to nature in a way that is unexplainable, but understood by the youngest child.
That's crazy to see it through their perspective as well. That's good. I mean, or you could be creating a basketball team, but either one.
Yeah, or a basketball team, yeah. But anyway, the whole thing about Dave Seville is he seemed like he just sat at home all day and wrote songs. I was like, that's the life. And his house wasn't little. Like, oh, Dave's got a nice little house. Look at his hair's perfectly combed. All he's doing is writing songs. That's it.
Yeah.
That's a dope life. Like I like that. So yeah, here's to all the Dave Sevilles out there. And the real Dave Seville, I think his name was Ross. Ooh, I'll have to put that in the show notes. It starts with a B. I don't think I can pronounce his last name, but he was the real Dave Seville, and he passed along, I guess, the rights to the Chipmunks to his son. And then his son has had it for 50 years, and they're all mega super wealthy now because of that right.
Manager either. That is funny.
Yeah. Between me and you, Francis, let's just keep it. Let's just Dave is their dad, okay? For me and you,
their father. Yeah,
that's their father. I do relate to your loss of this film. I mean, it's not even close to comparable, but I did lose a very rare case, stolen, bashed window from my apartment complex when I was 19. A very rare case of CDs, and they all had my initials CB on them in Sharpie. And every time I go to a swap meet or a pawn shop, I look at the CDs to see if they say CB on them.
That is crazy.
And it is my belief that one day, unless they've been melted down, one day I will find these CDs because they have a thumbprint on them. Right.
That's good. I believe it. I think that you would come across it. I also think that I would not be surprised if I saw it once. Like somebody finds it. It falls into the hands of some filmmaker in LA. There's a bunch of them out there. So
someone's going to hear this.
Go ahead and edit it for me and put it on YouTube so I can discover it. Please.
Someone's going to hear this conversation, and we're going to find your movie in my CDs. And we're going to have a celebratory party. And look, when I first got married, one of the things you have to do when you get married is you have to get rid of all your single guy shit. Like your single guy stuff has to go. Okay, you gotta take this union seriously, right? So I had a box, Francis. I'm not kidding. This box was like this wide and this deep, full of like cassettes, because I'm a musician, and I had recorded a bunch of like sessions, like friends that had passed away. Like we used to have ciphers where we rapped like for 8 hours straight. We had songs that we had written, all this stuff, and we had a garage sale. And for some reason, she thought my personal box of cassettes was for sale.
Oh, man.
And she sold my entire artistic past for $5.
Oh.
So I know what your next question is. Are you still married? Yes. Yes, I am still married. And yes, I have forgiven her. But somewhere out there, there's a man that has an outrageous and useless to him box of cassettes. Please return my box of cassettes if you hear this somehow. That would, and return Francis's short film as well, please.
Yeah, right. Returning the short film. The beauty is like you can't erase what the music means to you. No. I can't ever. I love that short film. I love that you asked about it because I can retell the story. Like it's one of those kind of things that it's like I can tell that story and it's still going to mean the same thing whether somebody watched it or not. And same with our whole conversation. We've talked a lot about loss and gain, and I think you always find it back. It always comes back full circle. And as creators, you can't ever hold on to that. We got to be. I love the show Ted Lasso. I don't know if
me too. It's the best.
It's the best. But he has this line of "Be a goldfish." It's like. Use it in the sense of like forget and move on. Like you're gonna keep growing and you're gonna keep creating, and that's what you got to hold on to. more or less the things that get taken from you, whether it's my basketball career or like the short film. Like I feel like you lose things in life, and I try not to sit in that. I try to accept it for what it was and grow from it. You want to try to just keep making more. I mean, that's the fun part about being creative. We can keep making more music, more films.
Yeah. And if we're being honest, the new stuff is probably better because we were able to learn from it, and we sort of make legend the stuff of the past, right? Like
we do make legend. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and you're free just to avoid this altogether and not answer this. I think that you're in a relationship with Ryan Lieber. Is that correct?
LeBar. Yeah.
LeBar. Oh, thank you for correcting my pronunciation. And I'm sorry, Ryan. Ryan LeBar. He's a technologist, a smart guy, a creative himself. Have you guys made anything together? When I saw his bio, I thought you guys probably should make something together.
Yeah. So we have made things together. So he comes from theater. That was his background. He studied theater in college and stuff, but he ended up falling in love with technology, and he's always built computers growing up. He got into VR and started his own VR company right out of school. And when I met him, he had owned that company, and their company, we actually have a really cute story. We met in Chicago in a movie theater. I was doing a show there, and he lived there at the time, and he happened to sit beside me in this theater. And he left me his movie ticket at the end of the theater, just stopped me and said, "Hey, open this later." And how it was a David Lynch. It was Mulholland Drive. So for all you David Lynch fans, it was a David Lynch movie-thon, but I had never seen it. And I lived in California, and I was like, I got to go see this movie. And he was coincidentally, we found out he was planning on moving to LA with his company. And we met, and I liked the note was like, "You're cute. Can we see another movie?" And he left his number, and I loved the gesture, even though I knew I didn't live in Chicago. I was like, "Hey, let's just meet this guy." And I did. And it was so serendipitous, but we obviously fell in love, and we're still together. And, he moved to LA, and he had a VR company, and they wanted to move to LA for all the creative reasons. And so we just kept dating. And early in our relationship, he loved that I design. He was familiar with what I do. And I ended up designing one of their projects. The company is still around. He's not with the company anymore, but they're called Embodied Labs. And they're a healthcare VR company that kind of brings experiences to people who want to understand those who have memory loss or whatever, like you can put on a headset and kind of have more empathy to those people. So it's a healthcare based company that Ryan came to LA with. They started with these two other fellows, but they ended up leaving because he wanted to tell more stories. And I think there was more of a healthcare based company. And after that, we got together, and he loves, again, emerging technology, VR. He was into just, emerging technology. So we got on a movie called Mouse Guard that was a really fun movie. He actually got on it first. Somebody had hit me up and said, "Hey, we're looking for," what they were looking for at the time was a digital asset manager. And on these big shows are kind of the ones who run the pipeline of all your assets on a show. And Mouse Guard was an animated movie built in Unreal, which is a game engine, shot with mocap people. And the movie itself were about mice. Mouse Guard was based on a comic book series, and it's still around. And Fox was making it. It was a medieval mice movie with mice killing mice. It was very exciting, but it was cute. It was really true to what it was. And we were 90% there of finishing the movie. So he got on it. I came on as an assistant art director at the time. And it was really cool to work on this movie. We're so excited to finish this. We'll get to go to a premiere together, like all these things. That was the year that Disney acquired Fox. And they found out we were trying to get so far. We were trying to finish before the acquisition, and we couldn't finish. And Disney, when they acquired Fox, canned the movie. And it is yet. And so that hard drive, that movie is sitting with whoever owns the rights now to the story. And I'm waiting for the day. I have it's the producers. I think Disney owned it. They acquired it, but they didn't want to put it out, and they didn't want to make it. They didn't want to spend the money to finish the film. And they pitched it around town, but I guess no one, it was very expensive. They were selling it for a very high price, and I know no one got it. So I have no idea where it is to this day, but I've heard rumors. Every now and then I hear a rumor that it's going to come out of the woodwork, and
it's called Mouse Guard.
Mouse Guard. It's the director was Wes Ball. He did he did Tron, I believe, or what? Not Tron. It was I think he's doing the new Planet of the Apes. But he's he's a very tech guy. So him and Ryan really bonded because they were really about Unreal and using this engine to build a movie now. Like that's kind of our future of filmmaking is like, I'm working on this volume with the Mandalorian crew and at Manhattan Beach Studios where you can shoot on an LED screen.
Yep.
And you don't need a blue screen anymore. You can just throw content up into this world that you've created digitally and move a rock 5 feet if you need to. You can make those changes now on the fly. It's unbelievable.
That's taken the entertainment industry by storm.
Right.
There's a guy down in Arkansas named Nathaniel Nuon, who's a filmmaker. He made the movie Voices. He has a massive LED screen and does commercials, and the applications of this are crazy. And these studios are getting built all over now because the proof of concept is there. And once a model is proven, then people will just copy. And it's amazing. I saw an application for a Jeep commercial. So before in the past, they would have had to build some fake set and roll in the Jeep and all this stuff, or they would have had to do an outdoor shoot where the Jeep's rolling through. Now they basically put a foreground set with the Jeep kind of like parked half on the ground, half on a rock with some like fake cactus around it. And then basically Arizona behind it on an LED screen that was photorealistic.
Yeah, it's really cool tech. And so now Ryan is with Unity, and Unity made The Lion King. They're a competitor to Unreal and Epic. And Unity is doing some pretty cool stuff. So he's a senior producer with them now. We both work kind of in that creative space. And I'm sure we'll work on another project. I'm always joking with him that we should do a play since he comes from theater. I think it'd be really fun. I'd love to design a stage play, but we'll see,
I can't wait to check it out. I mean, I love these sort of creative unions and what can come out of it because if you spend enough time with the person, you start to speak the same language. I can say that having spent a lot of time with my business partner, Nick, it's like we kind of can finish each other's sentences. We know where we're going and we never tear each other apart when a mistake is made. So it's like we get it. We know where we're coming from and there's a nice flow there. What are the 2 best pieces of advice you've received in your career so far, and who did they come from?
Knowing is half the battle is one of the best pieces of advice. It came from my middle school basketball coach, Coach Aiken. Shout out to Coach Aiken back in North Carolina, and my high school coach, Coach Fuller. And knowing it is half the battle is just so important. If you can understand your situation, you can make better choices, right? Like be informed, like ask questions, like let's not assume and go blindly into creative decisions or any decision in life, right? Like, so knowing is half the battle is one that I love. And honestly, speak life and not death. Like that, just speak life into people, I think fuels creative opportunities and culture in such a way that and so many times in our industry, we're like, no, that's wrong. And I'm like, we're making art. How is it wrong? Like there's better decisions, but like it's not black and white. And I think that we like speaking life into, oh, that's a good idea. Like, let's elaborate on that. Or have we thought about this? It's yes. And it's improv. We're figuring this out as we go. And I know there are certain stories that you want to tell as a creator and you want to make sure everybody gets it right. But being open-minded to the fact of the creative process and respecting the creative process and how it works. Like you'll get there, you could still get to the same point. And I think we can do that by only encouraging each other. Cause like you said, like, I love what you said about you and your partner. Like you don't hammer each other on mistakes. Yeah. Cause you work out of fear and not out of positivity. And when you work out of fear, that's where more mistakes happen. Right. Like, I don't like that in a work environment. I try to cultivate a culture around everyone from the PAs that I'm working with to the director to everybody. It's like, let's empower each other. Let's bring out the best and try to get the best out of people. So speaking life and not death is probably one that I also would try to live. I don't know if those are advice, but like,
Oh, it's beautiful.
And also just go for it. I guess the advice part, go for it. Whatever you want to do, go for it. Like I'm all about just following your dreams and your ambition, as we probably can conclude at the end of this. I'm like, go for it.
Yeah, I love both of those pieces of advice. And speak life and not death is, people don't even realize how cynical they're being. A lot of times you can sort of shield and hide cynicism in humor. And so, I'm a humorous person, I'm not cynical. No, you're kind of cynical with your humor. And maybe 10% more optimism would be great. Which creatives do you most admire and want to emulate? And what do they do from a technical or skill standpoint that sets them apart?
So one of the creatives I love working with is Taika Waititi. Ooh. I have, he's one of my favorite directors. He's an eccentric human being, but in kind of a really fun, creative way. One of my favorite movies of all time is Boy by him. It's one of his earlier films. It's an indie film. He made it kind of based on his childhood and upbringing. It's based in New Zealand. Brilliant film. I love the way he tells stories from a child's perspective and stays true to what that is. But I was obsessed because I love that movie. I was like, I want to read his script. Like, how could he write how could he write the story? Like, it's so good. Like creatively from the editing to like the way the actor delivers the line or the sets are just kind of in this Wes Anderson whimsical feel, but it aids the story. It doesn't distract you from the story. Yeah. I worked with him on Next Goal Wins, which is hopefully going to be coming out at the end of this year. I know he's a busy man, but we've done reshoots, and I know that that's coming out soon, so you guys have to check that out. It's a soccer movie that we shot in in Hawaii, for American Samoa, and the story is about an American Samoan soccer team. It's a comedy. It's a coming of age, or not a coming of age, but it's a comedy drama kind of based on a coach who's trying to find his way as well. He's kind of a lost, he has a big ego coming into the story, like of what he thinks soccer is and football is and I think these American Samoans kind of change his mind. But working with Taika directly, it was just so creative to watch him not have it's like almost he has a process and not having a process. Like he would have come to set and just on the fly, like be able to guide the actor, or an actor would say something. And he's like, oh, we're using that. That's great. Like he completely rewrites everything all the time. And it's chaos, but in a way that is just so honest because it's happening in real time that you wouldn't be able to capture that on camera if you premeditated that. You know what I mean?
I can't wait to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but that was also challenging from the art department side is you have to give, you want to give him sets that he can create that magic in. Because he's not going to know what chair he wants. Like here's some options. You got to give him a world. Let's give him the realistic world from every perspective, and then you can really bring out whatever you need.
Yeah, I'm going to check him out, and can't wait to see the movie because I'm not familiar with the work, but it sounds like it's worth digging into for sure.
Yeah, he's done. I mean, he did What We Do in the Shadows. He just directed the new Thor movie, but his personal work, like What We Do in the Shadows or Our Flag Means Death, is coming out soon, or it just came out. It's on HBO Max. So his work is out there, but the smaller pieces are really worth a watch for sure. For
some reason, I feel like I know the title, What We Do in the Shadows.
It's on. I think it's on FX.
I'll have to check vampires. It out. I feel like I know that one. So it's weird because sometimes you'll end up knowing somebody's work, but you don't know it's their work.
Yeah.
It's like, what
Jojo Rabbit's a good one too.
Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah. No, I know this person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm insane. Delete everything I just said. I love Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit was one of my favorite movies.
Yep.
When it came out, and great. It was one of those movies that made me laugh and cry.
Yeah,
that's hard to do.
Yeah, it's hard. It's he really got into the story. Like again, the perspective of which he tells the story is a really cool thing to see. And for me, learning just as a filmmaker, like I do design and I art direct, but just telling. At the core, I just want to tell stories. So watching him tell stories is a really cool process.
I had a brain fart. He's a genius. All right, let's just leave it at that, and hopefully everyone will forgive me in film world.
Yeah.
If you had a month to teach someone how to be a great or just a production designer or do art design, what would be the first three things you teach them?
Oh, that's a tough question. The first thing is how to sell your ideas, right? Like, how can you get, there's this book that I am brain farting on, but it's how to make friends or how to influence people and make friends too. Do you know what book I'm talking about?
I think it's the Carnegie book, How to Make Friends and Influence People.
Yes. Right. It's like how in this industry, we're working with so many creatives and how can you, the more you can kind of understand how to present an idea and how to pitch it correctly, because you have an idea, but it's all about how I deliver it to you. And you could take it completely different way than the way I'm delivering it. Because you'll have your own interpretation and your own experiences. So for me, it's like when I do things like that, I try to pitch decks. Like I'm a really good graphic designer. So I like to think that I can graphically and visually show you kind of what I'm pitching for a movie or film. So it's like, really, how do you, as a biggest advice as a designer for trying to learn is like, how can you help sell your ideas? You know, it's kind of like, what kind of stories are you trying to tell with what you're given? Second piece is you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. So learn to surround yourself with a really good team and don't be intimidated. Who cares? You know, you may be really good at people skills and you have no idea how to build a set. So hire the best set designer, hire a really good art director, hire the best, construction team, and then they'll be able to build it for you. You know, it's like, or maybe you're the best set designer, but you need someone to help you in the meeting. So hire a good art director who can help pitch these ideas, or like a great graphic designer who could put your deck together. You know, it's like, you're only as good as your team. Yep. So second piece of advice is that. And then I'd say the third piece of advice is to just dive into. Or this
might be the third thing you teach them. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Teach. Yeah. Teach. The third thing I would teach is, the third thing I would teach, I guess I kind of lost track of the teaching point.
No, it's okay.
The third thing I would teach is how to, so anytime when we're in the arts department, we're constantly trying to organize a set and how it's built, drawn, and what paint colors. So the things that are invaluable is how do you present that information to your team? Yeah. So if I were to do a document that shows this is how the set's getting built, here are your paint colors, it's like your plans, right? Like here are your set design plans. We want these materials. It's your call outs for different needs, whether it's we need to get these materials on this wall, this color paint, the better organized, because there's so many moving parts with a set, whether it's the set dressing, fixtures, lighting, and then construction, the plans to build. How can you do these documents to better help a team achieve the goal? Right. So that's a skill set that's definitely you need to get taught, because there's different ways to do it. And everyone has their own style, but it's like, if you can have a piece of paper and hand it to anyone, they should be able to know what to do with it. And that's an invaluable skill set, right? It's like, how can you better distribute information where there's, of course you want questions. And I always love questions because you may see things differently, but at the same time, I want all the information there to know how to ask the right questions.
Perfect. And so for those keeping score at home, number one is learn how to, or she'll teach you, Frances will teach you how to sell your ideas. She will teach you how to surround yourself with incredible people, because you're only as strong as your team. And then the third thing she'll teach you, if you want to do production design, is how to create a set document that communicates everything that you're trying to communicate and do in a very succinct and clean way. And that's amazing. I think you've been so generous with your time, Frances, and the stories you've been able to tell have just really warmed my heart and touched me and made me think. I have some really quick speed round questions and we'll get you out of here. And so this is a little game. We'll try to go as fast as we can with the question and answer. All right. Question one. Are you a hat lady?
Yes.
Is your favorite food spaghetti?
Spaghetti. Yes.
What's your favorite musical group?
Like artist, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Brandy Carlisle.
Brandy Carlisle. Ooh, nice. What's been your favorite foreign trip?
Norway.
Ooh, Norway. I'm going to write that down.
Beautiful.
For my own purposes. What's next for Frances Hernandez?
I am finishing the show and I'm going on vacation. And I am very excited about it. I am going to Italy with one of my girlfriends. I'm so excited.
I'm very jealous.
Rarely do we really take time off and take trips for me. And this is a for me trip for sure. I need it.
What part of Italy?
All over. I'm going to explore. I'm going to Rome, Florence, Cinque Terre, Venice, all over. And but honestly though, I'm going for the spaghetti. I'm going for the I'm going to eat my way through. You're just going to see, it's going to be a food blog on my social media for the day.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Yes, I'm down for the history. Yes, I'm down for the culture. Yes, I will walk through a cathedral, but all only to get to the food.
And I think the food will tell you everything you need to know about everything.
Oh,
right?
That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. I want to have the whole food experience, and through that, I will know the people and the culture and everything else. I'm with you.
Yes, sir.
Frances, I hope you have a great time on vacation. You've been awesome. Can you tell this audience where to find you on social media so they can follow your food blog, and where they might find you on the internet, or maybe even see some of your work? And then can you just promo some of the films you have coming out? There's so many. Yeah.
So franceshernandez.com is my website. You can check out some of my latest work on there. Frances Lynie, Lynnie on Instagram. And Frances, by the way, is spelled with an E, Frances. A lot of people think it's with an I, but it's with an E. I'm pretty much only on Instagram. So, I'm excited. My next project, I don't know what my next project is going to be yet. I'm really looking forward to taking a much needed break. I think there is a thing of being burned out in this industry. We work 14-hour days and it's rough. So I think as much as I pour into this, I'm going to take some time to pour into my own projects and my own little artsy, my home and my relationships and my well-being. So I think, that's kind of what's next. But I do have house parties coming out. We've got Next Goal Wins is coming out. So you guys got to check out those two films, and then eventually Ahsoka in 2023, hopefully. So
I love it. And we'll end on this. Any thoughts about Brittany Griner?
Oh man, I feel for her. I am so ready to bring her home, and it's just hard to really understand because again, like if this were LeBron James or anyone else, they would be here already. It's just hard to see other women struggle, especially right now in politics and the unfortunate circumstances she's in. But dearly missed, I know, in the community of women's basketball and sports in general, and it's love to get that girl home and playing basketball like what she's supposed to be doing right now. Yeah,
I wanted to ask you that just because I know you have a unique take, having played ball overseas professionally.
Yeah.
Is there anything that, as a lay audience, we wouldn't know about that you might know from that experience?
It's crazy because when you go play overseas, as much as they're investing in you and bringing you as a professional athlete to their country, you're trusting them. And I played in Kuwait and in Dubai and in the Middle East, and I was terrified to go over there. Like, who are these people? Like, I was very, you don't know. You only know what you know from the media and whatever. And it's like, I had friends who were there and they were comforting me, saying like, oh, they'll take care of you. They'll put you up. They're going to give you a car. They're going to wine and dine you. It's going to be great. The package is amazing. And so you get this package and you trust these people. And to watch, I feel for her because I can't imagine trusting this program that brought me over there from the Russian side of things. And then for like, sure, we can look at America all you want, but she also put trust into a summer program that she had to go do because the WNBA is not paying her enough. Like, that's crazy. She's the best basketball player in the league, and yet she has to go pick a side job where she's now trapped. And it's like, it's just unbelievable. I just feel for her because I mean, it was scary for me to go to Kuwait and anything could have happened, right? And you're at the hands of another country. And I was they made me have a relationship with the embassy just for that fact of anything could happen. At the same time, I will say, Kuwait was an amazing country and I felt perfectly safe. And I got a chance to meet a lot of amazing people, especially women who my teammates on, in playing internationally on that team, they wore hijabs and they lived this almost side life. And to watch them in the national team there, they range from like their teens to their 30s and 40s. And they're like career women, or like they have a job, but they want to play basketball. And screw society's rules. Like, they're supposed to stay at home and the men make money. And then it's crazy to see these like inspiring women who just want to come out and play basketball. I mean, there was nothing like it. So as much as it's scary going to another country and not, having trust in that, it's also a beautiful experience. So I hate that right now she's on the wrong side of the tracks. And I really want to get her back because it's, unfair, the situation she's in, for sure.
Likewise, and we need to keep fighting the good fight, not just for Brittany, but for anyone that could be in that situation in the future, and for each other. Because if we don't speak up for her, then there will be no one to speak up for us.
Absolutely.
So I think those are all great points. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Frances. I hope you have too. And
I have. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
it was an honor talking to you. I think we've covered so much. I feel like we're now friends. Let's meet up.
We are
friends. Yeah, I think we grew so much.
Yeah, I'm taking you and Ryan out for spaghetti the next time I'm in LA, and we'll go to some great Italian spot together for sure.
Where are you? Where are you based?
I'm located in Nashville, beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. But before the pandemic, I used to go to LA like every 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, next time you're here, we'll take you out for sure. You got to eat some Nashville hot chicken for me.
I will. And if you come through, I'll make sure that you'll have the key to the city.
I'll be there hopefully soon. I'm hoping to take a fall southern trip. So I'll let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the trap that tourists fall into is they get the wrong hot chicken because everybody serves it now. So there's only a couple places you can really get it, as it turns out.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
So I got your back. And for this audience, thank you for having our back. Again, if you ever need to find out more about the Make It podcast and more about Bonsai Creative, you can do that. It's at www.bonsai.film. And of course, this podcast, if you want the show notes, links to anything we talked about, and we talked about so much, that'll be, again, at www.bonsai.film/makeit, or you can find it on the podcast show notes everywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, you name it. Frances, I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Be good.
Yeah.
Peace. Hey, gang. One more thing before you go. I want to talk to you about Indie Insights. Indie Insights is our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to the film industry, movies, and the creatives that make them, not to mention you, our esteemed listeners. Inside, you'll find curated industry trends, articles, exclusive commentary, and underappreciated films from filmmakers like you worldwide. And the best part is that it's completely free. So, join today at www.bonsai.film. It just takes a few seconds, and once you sign up, you'll get the very next newsletter. It's that simple. Go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter, and join a network of film creatives like yourself. And don't worry, we'll never sell your information or spam you with a bunch of nonsense emails, just the bi-weekly film industry goodness you need. And if you ever tire of Indie Insights, we hope not, but if you do, simply unsubscribe. No gimmicks, no games. So, one more time, go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights for free. And thank you for listening.